Welcome back, everyone. I have quite a lot of sawing to do ahead of me here, and one of the things that I feel like I'm continually needing is more stickers. So that's primarily what we're going to be doing in this video, is making a whole bunch of stickers so I have more for all this material. The thing with stickers is they're reusable, so one of the nice things about that is you can kind of gauge how much inventory you have on sticks by how many stickers you have left. And that's because I'm out. I know that I have a lot of inventory on stickers, or at least what was historically a lot of inventory. But at this point, I'm kind of done with the house stuff. I have a little more free time. I want to grow the inventory some more, so I have more stuff ready to go that's very sawn for people to kind of, look through or whatever. I have more inventory for people. There goes a rabbit. Anyway, so we're gonna make some stickers, a lot of stickers today. And just to give you a preview of the future, this is like the staging pile. This is some of the stuff I got this spring. Basically, I started sticking them out here because it was kind of muddy. I didn't feel like driving them over to the actual log pile, which is, over there. That pile has got a lot of stuff in it that has to get sawn. Oh, look, another giant log here has to get sawn too. So plenty of stuff to saw. And just for some terminology, these things here between all the layers, these are stickers. They're a piece of wood that allows some airspace between the slices so that they can actually dry and the air can circulate and all that. And another fun vocab word, this here is a boule. It is an entire sliced up log with all the pieces. So here is a pretty typical sticker. I'll make those out of whatever I have laying around that I don't need or want. The cap pieces that come off of slabs, or come off of logs to create slabs or lumber. Slabs that nobody buys, that I have no other use for, I'll slice up into stickers as well. The only thing that I really care about is that the wood is dry, because you're gonna be putting wet lumber on top of these stickers. If the sticker is wet and the lumber is wet, there is gonna be no transference of moisture from the area that's contacting the sticker, from the slab to the sticker, and then you get moisture pockets, you get mold, then you get sticker staining, which is when there's actually like a visible line all the way through that board, that slab. It doesn't plane out because it's fully stained like through the thickness of the board. So you want the sticker to be able to pull moisture out of the slab, because in that one spot there's no airflow because the sticker is contacting the slab. And there are several ways you can help mitigate that by reducing the surface area that the sticker contacts the wood. You can put a groove or a cove down the face of the sticker so that you only have a little bit of contact surface on the outside of the sticker touching the wood. You have like a little air pocket in the middle. That's just extra work as far as I'm concerned. I've never really had a problem with staining, so I just do flat stickers because it's less work. So I don't really have a whole lot of like boards or slabs I don't need that need to get cut up, but what I do have is a lot of deadfall and a lot of future deadfall from all these ash trees which have died. And there are a lot of little tiny skinny ones that I don't really have much other use for, like this guy. It's like 4 or 5 inches in diameter. And I also have all kinds of other deadfall down here in the woods. This is some red oak that fell over that can go and become something else. It can become stickers just fine. So we got some of this stuff, which is otherwise, I don't know what you would do with this. It's probably not even great for firewood, or maybe it's good for firewood. I don't know. I don't burn a lot of firewood. But in the process of cleaning up my trails here, you might as well just yank this whole stick out of here and turn it all into stickers, because that seems like a good use for it. Like here's another, that's an ash tree. And it's not very big in diameter, but what else are you gonna do with that? This one here, also ash, kind of smaller in diameter. This one here, slightly bigger. That's about a 10-inch diameter tree. Also completely dead all the way up. But the problem with removing some of these bigger ash trees, which I will have to get into in the future, is a lot of them don't have super great drop zones where you're not gonna impact all the other smaller trees or even bigger trees in this little forested area. And we don't have a whole lot of like forested space here. Most of the property is all pasture. But we have this section here which is on a pretty good incline that goes down to the road, just a few acres. And this is really the only real like wooded area on the property. So I don't really want to destroy a bunch of good healthy trees, removing a bunch of dead ones. So here's a good example of a dead one. There's a 4-piece ash tree, which these two limbs or stems here are both obviously going to want to go that way, and they would land and completely destroy this cherry tree, which I have been training and pruning upwards, and it's following this little hole in the canopy between the pines. So if this falls on it, that tree is not going to be too good looking of a tree anymore. This guy here is, I think, the biggest ash that I have. It's about, I don't know, 20 inches or so in diameter. It's leaning to the left, and it's got a lot of weight hanging off to the left. So it's going to go into those pine trees, and it'll probably get hung up on one of those crotches up there in the pine trees. So that's all to say that the majority of the ash trees that I'll remove from here will have to be topped before they can be felled to minimize damage, but I'm not getting into that today. Today, I'm just collecting junk logs so we can start making them into stickers. And I have this pile of logs here too that I pulled out of there years ago that can go into the pile of things we'll turn to stickers. Oops. Yeah, good enough. All right, let's see about getting some of this out of here, or at least get the trail cleared. The nice thing about this is that like I really only need like 4-foot lengths at the saw or whatever when we bring them back up there. It's more convenient to bring them out longer lengths, but on this bigger stuff like this red oak, I don't think it's really worth trying to struggle and get these bigger pieces out of here versus just making more trips. Yeah, let's get some sticks out of here, I guess. I see you got some branches on you. Should have been wearing a hard hat, huh? Well, we are making progress at least. I think the rest of this tree we'll have to try and grab from up above. And it actually looks like this guy is part of this. So it must have been like a multi-stem base thing, because these all kind of, I haven't gone up there yet, but it looks like they originate from the same location. So anyway, I got this pretty big log that's gonna be laying here, which we can fish up through that kind of hole up there. But I'm gonna at least get this bucked up a little bit here, get this sort of cleared out of here. So we have at least the red oak ready to get out of here. There's a lot of ash back here, like this. Where's this one here? That's dead. It's a pretty nice straight tall tree. And then the one right there, it's also dead as well. There's also one sitting right here. So the issue with these is they're so tall, and we're on a hill. So the hill's running like this. So all the trees kind of grew this way. So they all want to fall. Well, they're leaning downhill. Anyway, the downside of how these trees are all leaning is they're leaning towards the bottom of the hill where the power lines are. So like this one back here, if I cut it exactly where it is right now, it'll for sure hit that power line. So that's not gonna happen. And these are all so tall that at least where I'm at right now, they'll for sure hit the power lines. I could maybe get, I don't know, this guy over here, that guy there, it might fall in a way that it wouldn't hit the power lines from here at least, but it would still crush like whatever little trees are growing here. So that's nothing for today at least. I'm gonna get back to this red oak. think that's going to be it for down here, at least for now. So while I am here, before we leave, I got to take care of some buckthorn, because I might as well. So there's a lot of it. With this stuff, you have to kill the roots or else it just resprouts. So on something like this, I would normally just push it over the skid steer and take the whole root ball out of the ground. But it's up on this hill and I really feel like making a mess right now. So I'm just gonna cut it off. And then I have some Roundup. I'll spray that on the stump and that'll kill the root system and kill the whole tree. So then it's not making seeds anymore. Well, one less seeder out here. S-E-E-D-E-R, not C-E-D-E-A-R. How's that for aim? Okay, here's what we dragged up here so far. Man, it adds up fast. So we got that. I'm gonna try and see if I can find where the those red oaks originate from to see how feasible removing them is gonna be. Let's see. Should be down through here somewhere. There's one. Oh yeah. They originate from the same place. Oh. Okay. So there's that one. Actually, it's from up here, it doesn't look as long, which is nice. This one's still got a pretty good amount of length to it. But I don't know how far down this hill is already. I'm not going to be pulling big chunks of this stuff out of here with the skid steer, that's for sure. This one I might be able to get out as one piece. This one I'll have to buck up and I'll probably still put up a fight. Oh boy. Okay. See if I can sneak it past the stump or it's just too heavy. that's not gonna happen. Good to know. Let's see what the trailer can do. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so there's that one. Up at least close enough that I can grab it later or whatever. I think this is the way to fish logs up a hillside. That seems to be very effective. All right, so I think I'm just gonna whack this thing free of the root ball and drag this thing out of here. That works so well. That's probably how I'm gonna get all these other trees out of here someday. Well, the dead ones at least. Oak tree. Little baby oak. Okay, that should be quite a bit to keep you busy, or at least to start with that, I guess. The last thing I'm going to do, as far as collection of wood goes, is come over here and drop these other two trees that are dead. These guys here, just get them out of the way and then That'll be a lot of stuff to process. Let's see how big a mess this is. Last cut. Always the last cut. Something goes wrong. A little bit of chicken wire. Kind of a fun example of what would happen if I hit my chainsaw chaps is the chainsaw chaps would pull out all these long fibers and clog up the saw, just like this chicken wire did. I'm sure this chain is just about done now, or needs to head back to the bench and be sharpened, but I should be able to make it through that back cut once I get this untangled, if I can get it off of here. Oh. Okay. All right. Goodbye, chicken wire. I hear a chipper somewhere. The siren song of a chipper. All right, who didn't tell me to put the chain on backwards? You're supposed to be over here telling me things. Okay. That's probably the best time to notice that. The worst time is when you're out actually cutting and you're like, what the heck? Why is this saw not cutting anymore? It's even more puzzling with a brand new chain. It's like, this chain's brand new, it should be cutting just fine. There's no way this is dull already. No, it's just backwards. Okay, there is the haul of logs. At least those are the ones in the trailer. This is all the stuff that came out of that, I don't know, that corner area there. So there's one more over there too, but whatever. I'm gonna start blocking these things up. The longest lengths that I need for stickers are gonna be 4 feet, but I can use 3-footers, 2-footers, 1-footers all the way down, but I'm gonna try and get as many 4-foot sections out of these from the straight areas as possible. So this one's got like this jog in here, so it'll be a cut here to get this jog out of here, and then this will probably be like a 3-foot chunk right there or something like that. But that's the general gist of what I'm going to spend the next however long doing. Making a bunch of shorter logs out of these longer ones, at least the smaller ones. The bigger ones I'll worry about later, because I will probably end up cutting them differently than the smaller ones. Yes, most of the small stuff all kind of bucked up and whatnot. I haven't run this saw in a couple of years and it needs a tune-up real bad. So for these little things like this, these are going to be a great example of taking the wood to the tool instead of taking the tool to the wood, like we're going to do here. We're going to cut all this stuff here in the shop and actually move the wood through the tools versus just trying to saw these in the sawmill. I have a video I did several years ago on cutting small logs on the sawmill, and I think it illustrates the point of, like, you can cut this kind of stuff on my saw or on a sawmill, but it gets obnoxious because you're only cutting for a few seconds, then you got to stop and readjust a log and reclamp it and whatever. It just gets a little bit annoying versus just being able to run through stuff here in the shop because you can clamp it with your hands. So I'm going to square these things up first, and then we'll do all the sawing on the bandsaw. This one here is kind of like, I don't know, in the kind of mid area of diameter. For the small stuff, that's maybe like 3 or 4 inches in diameter. I'll just square those up completely, and those will become my dunnage. All the bigger ones, I'm going to square up 2 faces, and then we'll go over to the bandsaw and just start slicing them all up into slices. That's going to be a little too slow. I have a pretty good pile to kind of get me going here. I'm just swapping on one of my old carbide blades since I don't care how the cut quality is. And I'm going to be slamming stuff through here pretty fast, so I want to tweak my new blade. So we're going to put this guy on here for now. right, I always forget how much work this is. But there's our stack of small boards and a bunch of 3x3s for dunnage. I still have all of these to kind of go through, and not all of them are going to be really useful for anything. I got all the pieces with the bends in them still that probably aren't going to become much of anything, but I don't really feel like doing any more of that right now. I think some faster yields sounds a little better. So we're going to move on to getting some of these guys sawed. So I'm going to go get the sawmill and get that sitting here in the driveway. So I think people sometimes get confused when they see the sawmill not sitting up in the driveway. But I put it away when I'm not using it. And we typically batch shoot all the sawmill videos, so it doesn't need to be out in the driveway all the time. If I don't really know when I'm going to be shooting another video, I will leave the bed sitting there, but the saw head itself, you know, it'll go in the barn just to get it out of the weather. Because I used to tarp it every single time I was done with it, and that was a lot. So at least now I don't have to do that. And this is pretty easy to bring over to the driveway and just set it in place and plop the saw head on it. No big deal. And the other really nice thing about this is cleanup, because you can get the whole bed out of the way and you can go through with the skid steer bucket and just scoop up all the junk that falls between the bunks of the bed. I usually have to do that with a shovel, just go in there and start scooping up between the bunks with a shovel at the old house. But man, being able to get this thing out of the way, clean up everything around it, and have a fresh slate every time, it's so awesome. All right, let's get the saw head. Oh, almost. Okay, there's the pile of offcuts already just from squaring up two faces on all that red oak. I have some of these longer, small ones. I went ahead and I squared some of those up on the jointer. So when I put all of these guys back on the saw to start making all the slices, I can kind of mix those in and cut those while I'm cutting all of these, and they'll be held in place by the sandwich effect of all of these butted up next to each other. So I'm going to just square up a couple more of these, and then we'll start loading the saw bed up and getting it ready for slicing. Okay, there's our first batch all loaded up. So now I can go through and make all my cuts all at once. wood. So I've been going kind of back and forth in my mind here as to what the best next step for this should be. Because at this point, I could cut all these boards down into their final lengths and then stack them on a pallet, and then we'll rip them into stickers once the boards are dried. The stickers are in here vertically right now. They're sitting in there kind of like that, so I could either block them down into boards now, dry the boards, and then rip the stickers out of them. That's one way to do it. I could turn the whole stack sideways and then start ripping my way down through these stacks on the sawmill to give me, this is a 14-foot piece right here, to give me a 14-foot long sticker, and then I have to come back and chop them down, and we can stack them to dry on a pallet, and then once they're dry, we can take them to final thickness in the shop. But that also sounds annoying, I guess, because trying to cut those giant long sticks, you gotta have a whole bundle of them, so you have to hopefully bundle them together and then maybe chop them. Otherwise, they might get all mixed up or whatever, so you're trying to get them all packed back together so then you can chop them. So what I have, I think what I've decided to do is, instead of doing all that, is to turn them 90 degrees and then make a cut partially through so I can still have them all nicely held and easy to manage or whatever, so that as the sawmill comes through, it's going to release a finished sticker blank, essentially, and then that blank can go onto the pallet. I think that's going to be a little bit easier to deal with than a bunch of other stuff. The only downside is that I have to reconfigure everything onto the sawmill to get everything held correctly and whatever. That's kind of the biggest thing that's going to be holding these things as we're trying to saw these stickers out of here. And I think at a certain point they're going to get down towards the bed far enough where we're going to have some kind of narrow boards, and then we can rip them later on into the individual stickers. But whatever. At this point, I'm just going to try and save myself as much work as possible for the future and just, you know, go from there. So that's my thoughts, at least. One of the nice things about this is it's going fast. Every slice is about 100 stickers, which is great. That is nice and quick, like a lot faster than getting these out of smaller logs, which is one of the advantages of using up a bigger log like these ones for this versus trying to use all the small piece of ash that I have. Production goes a lot faster. It's more efficient, but that's part of how it works. The bigger the logs, the more efficient things get up to a certain point, and the logs get so big that you start kind of going the other way with things because they get so big to be able to handle, maneuver, and all that. So that kind of eats up some of your efficiency at that end, but this is cool. Nice and quick. Not too bad. And you probably saw me as I've been kind of sorting through these. I've been creating some piles here under the bunks, just kind of going by the partial lengths. So I have some like longer, medium, and then really short ones over here, so then when this is all kind of stacked, I can put those into a pile too. But they'll be used, oh, I gotta cut these again. I reached the bottom of the chainsaw cut. But anyway, I have all these down here to kind of deal with, and all the ones that are kind of like junk, they get tossed over in the sawdust pile, and they'll find their way back to the woods. Okay, so I will cut these a little bit deeper, reposition my clamps and stuff, and then I think we'll probably get 3 more cuts out of this, and then we'll just have some basically boards that I'll put into here, and we can resaw those later once they're dry, but at least the majority of all of the stickers are sawn and in this pile. So short ones. These are probably too short. That's junk. Okay, so now there's 2 of them in here, so I'm gonna put these in a stack to dry like this. Then we do the finished processing. These will get ripped into half, basically, and there'll be a couple more stickers in each of these little pieces. Okay, I think that is kind of everything stacked up from this first batch. So here's what we have out of this first sawmill sawing batch. It's a lot of little pieces of wood, that's for sure. And look how wet the stuff still is towards the middle here. You can see how much moisture's in here. This is all heartwood. It's not like this is 2 different types of wood. This is not the sapwood. This is not the heartwood. This whole thing is heartwood. This is just fully saturated heartwood. So that's gonna need some drying time for sure. So I think I'm gonna run through and do the second batch on the sawmill real quick. It's flies. I've got these 2 that are squared up that I didn't put on the saw for this last batch, so they're ready to go. There's that little piece there, there's that piece there, and then there's whatever I can get out of these sections of ash as well. So we'll run through those and get these logs out of my driveway, and we'll see how big the stack of stickers is in the end. Okay, there is our stack of sticker stock all stickered and ready to dry. Just to give you a rough idea of quantity here, each row is about 50 stickers, assuming they're all 4-footers all the way across, and then there are 36 rows, so there's 1,800 stickers there. I wanted to make about 1,000. I'll let them sit out for probably about a month or so that they dry out for a while, drop a lot of moisture, maybe get down to the teens, and then I can process them and bring them to final thickness in the shop. And likely what I'll do is, as I need stickers, I'll go to this pile, process a few hundred of them at a time, and kind of whittle my way down through the stack until I've used them all up. Now, as far as cleanup goes, we've got all this scrap to get rid of. I still have a bunch of these little logs, so I don't know what I'm going to do with these. I may just make more of those, some more dunnage blocks just to have them, or I might just put them away for now. I also have a few other kind of smaller logs sitting over here too. This is the bigger of the 2 ash trees that I dropped with the kids. That might be big enough to actually make something out of, so I don't know. These will probably just go back into the log pile for a future date, or in case I want to go and make another 2,000 stickers sometime. I have logs for that. So I'm going to get some stuff cleaned up, and then we're going to be done with this one. So there is our nice stack of sticker stock. That should do 15 to 20 decent sized logs. So that should take me through, if I were to saw literally everything I have here, this should do most of every log I have. Not quite all of them, but a good chunk of the ones that I have sitting out there in the yard that got to get run through the saw. So this was fun. I had a good time actually getting out, doing some yard work, running the chainsaws. I don't get to run the chainsaws as much anymore. Did that a lot more when I was chainsaw milling, obviously, but there's not a whole lot of chainsaw work anymore. So that's fun. Got some exercise, got some utility wood made up, and it's not that often that you see me, I don't really, or I ever do it, is use the sawmill to cut anything other than wood that's for, furniture making. This is probably the greatest step away from that I would typically do. So kind of fun to do something a little bit different, a little more utilitarian, and it's all about the workflow. And we didn't do any water splashing because who cares? They're just stickers. So that is going to do it for this one. We got another log here. This one's ready to go. This is a piece of cherry. We're going to get that one cut up. That's the first one out of the pile to get run through. So look for that one in the future. But otherwise, thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments on what we just do, make stickers, please feel free to leave me a comment. As always, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next time, happy woodworking.